Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're going to dive into a really fascinating framework called positive intelligence. It gives us a whole new way to think about those internal battles we all seem to fight. So the whole thing kicks off with this one simple but super powerful question. We all like to think our mind is our best friend, right? But what if? What if a part of it is actually working against us every single day? And look, according to this framework, this isn't just you feeling down. It's an actual constant process of self-sabotage. In fact, every single negative emotion you feel, stress, anxiety, frustration, disappointment, it's all a result of this internal conflict. All right, so who is this enemy hiding out in our own heads? The positive intelligence framework doesn't just leave it as some vague, fuzzy feeling. No, it actually gives it a name and a whole cast of characters. So let's meet them. They call them your saboteurs. Basically, you can think of them as these deeply wired mental habits. You know, those negative scripts that just run on autopilot? And like any good group of villains, they've got a ringleader who's running the whole show. And that brings us to the main baddie in this whole internal drama. The judge. This is the one saboteur that's totally universal. We all share this one. So the judge, that is your relentless inner critic, right? While we all have our own unique mix of other saboteurs, the judge, it's guaranteed to be the strongest one in every single person. It's that voice of constant evaluation, constant criticism. And the judge's attacks are actually pretty simple. They fall into just three main categories. First, it finds fault with you. Telling you you're not smart enough, not good enough. Then it finds fault with other people, blaming them for everything. And finally, it finds fault with your circumstances, always complaining that things just shouldn't be this way. And this is such a brilliant example of how the judge works when it's focused on other people. A participant named Archie had this realization that what he thought was him just giving helpful advice was actually his judge in disguise, just passing criticism on his friends. It's a really subtle but powerful thing to notice. And it's not just about judging other people either. Here, another participant, Jen, talks about how surprised she was to see her judge attacking her circumstances. The traffic, the weather, a project getting delayed. It's that constant low-level hum of complaint in the background that, honestly, most of us don't even notice is there. Okay, so if the problem is these automatic negative thought patterns, what on earth do you do about it? Well, this is where the framework gets really practical and shifts from just diagnosing the problem to a very hands-on practice. The core idea here is pretty radical. It says you can't just talk your saboteurs away. You have to literally build up a different part of your brain. It's all about developing mental muscles to fight back. It's treated just like a fitness routine, but for your mind. And this is the core exercise. It's called a PQ rep, and it is ridiculously simple. All you do is shift your attention for just a few seconds from all that noise in your head to a physical sensation. You could focus on your feet on the floor, the air coming into your nose, or just the simple feeling of two fingertips rubbing together. This tiny little action starts to quiet that saboteur part of your brain and activates a completely different, much more resourceful part. Now, I know this all sounds good in theory, but what does it actually look like in practice? Let's drop into a live coaching call and see how people experience the shift in real time. So when people in the program were asked to describe their first experiences in just one word, these are the kinds of words they used. Not just, good or interesting. We're talking amazing, hopeful, even epiphany. That really points to a pretty big and immediate shift for a lot of folks. But here's a really crucial question that came up in that call. A participant named Krista asked, "Hey, what's the difference between judging and just having high standards?" I mean, especially at work, right? If you're managing someone, isn't the judge sometimes necessary? And this is the big aha moment. The key difference isn't about the standard itself. It's all about the energy behind it. The judge, well, it operates from negative energy, criticism, blame, frustration, and that just makes other people get defensive. The alternative, which they call the sage perspective, comes from positive energy, things like curiosity, empathy, and creativity. See, both are trying to solve the problem, but the sage approach actually inspires people to grow instead of just creating conflict. All right, so what's the end game here? What's the ultimate goal of all this practice? What's the real payoff for learning how to shift from that judge to the sage? Let's go back to Archie, because he explains a really tangible, everyday benefit so well. He talks about being able to stop that negative spiral.
Before, one little frustrating thought could totally derail his whole afternoon. But now, just by catching the judge in the act, he can stop it from taking over. And that's the key takeaway here. The awareness itself is the first huge victory.
And you know, when you start stacking up those small daily victories, they lead to some pretty significant long-term gains. We're not just talking about being happier. You're actually performing better with way less stress. Your relationships get better, and you build this incredible resilience and emotional intelligence that helps you navigate pretty much any challenge that comes your way. So we're going to end with this one question, which was inspired by a story shared during that coaching call. It really gets to the core philosophy of weakening the judge. Think about it. So much of our stress comes from instantly labeling things as good or bad. But what if we could just observe them with curiosity and trust that maybe, just maybe, we don't always know the full picture right away? What do you think might change that?